we'll get going with our presentation. Thank you for giving us time on your Thursday evening. I'm getting a bit over a cold, so if I sound a little raspy, that's the reason why. 3 kids, daycare. It's actually my first one for 2023, so that's actually pretty good. I made it through January relatively unscathed. What we're talking about today is Calgary, and for those that don't know us, and for those that have been on before, Cal and Niesh and I were talking. We're gonna introduce ourselves first. Then we're going to get directly into Hazelwood and why we like Hazelwood, and we're going to go over the project. And then we're going to go specifically in why we're investing in Calgary. Some of you have been on this presentation before, so we wanted to talk about Hazelwood closer to the beginning, the actual project which we have right now. And then if you've seen the part about why buy Calgary, you don't need to stay on the whole night. So that's a sequence that we're going to do. So my name is Alex Wilson, owner and broker of record of Remax Wealth Builders Real Estate. Been selling real estate in Toronto for over 12 years, #1 agent in Ontario for individual transactions 2019. I was actually #3 in Canada for 2021, and and we're waiting for the 2022 stats to come out. Inducted to the Remax Hall of Fame, awarded the Lifetime Achievement Award at 35, awarded the Circle of Legends Award as well when I turned 40, but none of that even matters. What really matters is that I've turned a deposit of $39,300 into a portfolio. It's actually more than 14. It's $17 million now, which I'll show you in a second. And someone just asked about deposit structure and everything. We'll get into that very, very shortly for the project. But so here's my whole portfolio here. It's worth over $17 million today, and in 30 years, it'd be worth $42 million. Why I show that is real estate is not a get-rich-quick scheme. It's all about building significant wealth over time. And if you apply those two finite resources, which is real estate, there's only so much land, and time, you only have so much time on this planet, you can build significant wealth. So I show this slide so you can see how much wealth you can build in over a long period of time by just simply buying and holding real estate. And I'll let Kyle introduce himself.
Hi, everyone. It's a pleasure to be chatting with you all tonight. My name's Kyle Dovigi. As the slide says, I'm licensed in Ontario and Alberta to trade real estate. But the more important thing is I've been investing in real estate for over 10 years now. And Alex and I got started investing at the same time. We took slightly different paths. I was working a very different career back then when we started. I was actually running the lottery. These are real lottery balls that were used in Lotto 649 draws. I was the draws manager, responsible for operating those games across Canada. And I had a sad and depressing statistic that came across my desk one day where over 1/3 of people were planning on winning the lottery to fund their retirement. So, incredibly depressing for me because I want to help people actually build wealth, establish their portfolio, build a retirement plan, not gambling on their future. So actually left the lottery and went full-time into real estate, joining Alex and Niesh at Remax Wealth Builders. And last year alone, I helped over 130 people across Canada achieve those dreams of wealth building and real estate ownership. And that was almost exclusively in Calgary, because I believe so strongly in that market, just like Niesh, just like Alex. So yeah, it's a fantastic opportunity for anyone. And had a similar path though, on a smaller scale, turned one deposit of about $38,000 into a real estate portfolio worth over $4 million. And Alex, if you go to the next slide, this is a breakdown of my portfolio. That I'm still pretty proud of, where I've got 1 freehold and I've got 5 pre-construction properties. And I was able to do that by saving up over time, but also refinancing those mortgages. A fantastic secret a lot of people don't know about, and this is something that we can show you on how to grow your portfolio. And I was able to do $4.5 million, growing to over $10 million in 30 years if I do nothing else, just let the tenants pay down the rent and let that portfolio grow. So very proud of that.
And Mr. Niesh.
Thank you so much. Welcome, everyone. Thanks again for being with us tonight. I want to introduce myself. My name is Niesh, and my name is quite long, so I'll say it really fast, Dissanayake, but you don't need to know that. I have been a real estate agent for coming up on just over 2 years. And prior to that, I was with a company called Versent Corporation for 22 years. Unfortunately, I didn't bring any props like Kyle did. But for those that don't know, Versent was the parent company of LaserQuest, which is a in-person experience entertainment facility. The reason I wanted to add that particular point to this slide is I worked there for 22 years. And as Kyle alluded to, always thinking about retirement. I didn't focus on the lottery being my exit to live comfortably. I was hoping to get a good severance package and really, build a good nest egg through the company. But in 2020, when COVID hit everyone, the entire globe, in-person experiences were tremendously compromised. And 6 months after we initially heard about the news, as a company, we had to file for bankruptcy. And unfortunately, employees aren't highly ranked on the creditors list. And as a result, many employees wind up with nothing. And this is a pretty large company. Thankfully for myself, I didn't only have LaserQuest as part of my my retirement plan. I also started to work towards my real estate license prior to the world shutting down. So I had a great exit, but many people didn't. And as I started to get into the real estate world and understood how real estate really worked as a, on the other side, so to speak, not just being someone that owned the property, I truly saw, working with Alex and Kyle, how I could leverage my existing equity into building my portfolio. And my first property was in 2006. I am probably the oldest in this panel. So I got started way back in 2006. But as you can see, 2006 to 2017, it was just 2 properties that I had. As I started to understand more about the real estate market, I figured out through the help of Alex and Kyle what I can actually do with the money that I had built in my property. Could I invest in Toronto? No, I couldn't. So as you'll see in my list here, the next 6 properties that I had either purchased individually or had a financial stake in were all in Calgary because of the affordability. And we're going to get into that a little later on. But also similar to Alex and Kyle, I was able to grow my portfolio tremendously, specifically in the last 2 years, almost quadrupled my holdings and also my current value. So this is something that we're going to be talking about later on. And the new project, Hazelwood Condos, will kind of get you thinking in the right pattern as well.
I think Niesh, and this is a new slide. We just added Niche's slides in here, but I love that the story that we're telling here, because you pivoted to Calgary because by the time that you were refinancing your existing properties and growing your portfolio, you were priced out of the Toronto market. And that's where we see tremendous opportunity in Calgary. When Kyle and I first started investing in real estate, we bought in 2012, and the pricing in Toronto in 2012 is similar to the pricing that we're seeing in Calgary today. I'm just going to mute this because the fire alarm is going off in my house, so I'll let one of the other guys.
So as Alex mentioned, just if you can go back to that last slide, Alex, the first property that I bought was a 2-bedroom condo in Toronto. Its current value is in the mid 700s, but I bought that for $282, which is where we're seeing prices right now in Calgary. So just want to use that as a frame of reference for the rest of this presentation.
Okay, so I can go over this. And at Remax Wealth Builders, we all work together, Alex, Niesh, and myself. And in 2022, we helped over 350 people from across Canada to invest in Calgary pre-construction properties. These were worth over $150 million. So pretty significant numbers. And the team, has personally invested in 10 units in Calgary. So we are practicing what we preach. We believe so strongly in the Calgary market that we're putting our money where our mouth is and investing personally ourselves.
Yeah, great point, Kyle. We also have encouraged our families to invest, which is more than us investing our own money, because we trust that market so much. We've actually opened it up to our friends and family because we truly believe that that is where you want to be putting your money when it comes to real estate.
Exactly. Great point.
Fire alarm kill, Alex?
So I guess so. So, and this adds on to the point where you can really use your home and real estate to build a retirement plan for yourself. And part of this is leveraging the existing equity in your house, not just today, but as it builds up over time. You can take that money out debt-free to invest and to purchase additional real estate. And sorry, not debt-free, tax-free, because you're moving around debt. And that can help you grow a portfolio that you would not be able to have achieved without using that equity that's just sitting there. And the key point is, every $350,000 condo, this is something I can get you today in Calgary, represents over $24,000 of annual income in your retirement years, if you account for the appreciation and what that money can earn, 20, 30 years from now. So you don't need to build a multi-million-dollar portfolio. Even one condo purchase can make you a condo millionaire and to fund a lifestyle in your retirement.
And these 3 points, that's exactly what I did. And that's how I was able to scale over the last 18 months. Not say that you have to do it that quickly, but considering the equity that you have in other investments and other, other areas that in your life, you can definitely use that as leverage to add on to your portfolio to grow your wealth down the road.
And this chart really breaks it down. We can touch on for 1 minute. Is if you did have a $1 million portfolio today, and really that's two $500,000 condos, three $350,000 condos. This is not things that are not achievable by people. The value in 30 years, be worth $2.5 million. That'll give you $42,000 a year for each $1 million in real estate that you have today. This is easily achievable by just about anyone out there if you want to work hard and start investing today.
Well, that's supposed to happen in condo buildings, not in detached houses. My head is still ringing. I'm so sorry for that, guys. Fire alarm is hopefully staying off now. But yeah, like as Kyle said, this is all about bite-sized sizes. So everyone here on this call can achieve it. And again, I'm from a small town north of Sudbury. Kyle's from Sudbury. Niesh came to Canada. None of us came from wealthy backgrounds, and this is where we see the affordability. And as Kyle said in the last slide, we can get you $350,000 condos today, which that'll represent $24,000 of retirement income in the future. So let's talk about that. So Kyle, do you want to jump in on here and talk more about Hazelwood?
Yeah, and this is the overview of the general project and the opportunity. So pricing does start from $299, including tax. We've got units available today. This isn't the fake price. These are real numbers for a 1-bed, about 620 square feet, including the parking space. You can get this today. All of the units in the building do come with free parking, and the deposit is one of the most extended deposit structures we have ever seen in Calgary. It's an initial payment of $10,000. Then 5% minus that 10,000 in 30 days, 2.5% in a year from now, and another 2.5% in a year and a half. So 10%, 4 payments spread out over a year and a half. Very achievable for a lot of people. And one of the most exciting things is a 2027 closing. This is the farthest out of any Calgary project as well. So comes with the rental guarantee for 2 years too. And we'll probably talk about this in more detail, but this is the complete investment package. Very good pricing when you compare it to other similar projects in Calgary. So if you're considering an investment, this allows you to get in a fantastic project.
And this is an area too that all three of us are invested in, which is East Calgary, which you can see here. So and East Calgary is very exciting. So it's a whole new area that's being developed. Hazelwood is part of the Huxley Master Plan community. And Kyle, what do we think about master plan communities?
We love them because they're proven to outperform standalone buildings. So you always want to maximize your return. This is one of the best ways to do it, is to invest in a master plan.
And what we're real, oh, there we go. We'll talk more about the incentives, and then we'll talk about why specifically this location, why we're excited about it. Kyle already talked about the extended deposit structure. And this is specifically what we have access to with our relationship with the builder. So you get that extended deposit structure, you get that 2-year rental guarantee, 2 years of free property management, free assignment on the property. Though anyone's listening to me talk, you shouldn't be assigning your property, buying and holding. That's why we started at the beginning, talk about our portfolios and holding them for 30 years. But it's really a turnkey investment for you there. On top of that, in Alberta and in Calgary, there's no closing costs. And what I mean by that, there's no land transfer tax, there's no extra development charges. So your only costs on closing are your legal fees. That's it. So when you see those numbers of up to $389,900 or $299,900, that's the price you pay. That's GST included in everything. So it's a very, very attractive price point and no extra surprise charges on closing. And fantastic floor plan. So Kyle, do you want to describe the floor plans a little more?
Yeah, and the Model A is one of my favorite. It's a split 2-bedroom, 2-bath unit, but you walk straight into the unit. There's no wasted space. I've already heard people say, oh, 650 square feet is pretty small for a 2-bedroom. And by traditional standards, it might be, but this is amazing. I've seen units 200 square feet larger that have less usable space. So no hallways, it's fantastic. The 2-bed, 2-bath opens up your tenant pool a little bit more as well. Could be a young family, could be a professional that needs an office at home, could be 2 roommates and they each get a bathroom. You get the balcony because outdoor space, is important, especially with COVID. We did notice that people wanted a little bit of extra outdoor space, and both bedrooms have windows. This is a huge key feature. So it's the most popular floor plan overall in the building. The most number of units are being built at Hazelwood as the 2-bed, 2-bath, and it's a fantastic option. The B is very similar. It's 2-bed, 1-bath, but a fantastic layout. Again, you've got the big kitchen island in the middle. And this is one of the key things. You have a place to put your television. I've seen so many floor plans where there's literally no place. You'd either have a window or a door behind it or a pillar or something like that. So all of the space in all of the floor plans is usable and really well thought out. Truman does a really good job about designing their buildings overall. And there's not 30 floor plans. There's really 3 main floor plans in the entire building. So they've kept it simple. And the 3-bed, 2-bath. This is quite a bit bigger unit, about 850 square feet. Again, a very good layout. The patio here is massive. It's 30 feet wide. So most terraces in Toronto aren't even this big. But really, I kind of see it as a 3-bed plus den, because at the very bottom, you have an area that you can actually set up a computer. And this is really important, where having that extra space available, if you did want to work from home, instead of using a bedroom, you have that dedicated area that you can use as a den location. So all fantastic options. And the 1-bed, 1-bath, this is a really good starter plan. There is an E model as well that's very similar. These are the 299 models. So nothing wrong with it. Really good use of the layout and the space. You've got a large window in the bedroom and in the living room as well. Yeah, this is the E model as well. So just a little bit bigger with the walk-in closet. Fantastic starter units if you're interested just to dip your toes in the water in Calgary.
And Niesh, because I know you love East Calgary, Northeast Calgary. Why don't you talk more about how the Northeast is consistently been one of the top performing areas, and you've seen this as well with your townhome that you bought just north of the Hazelwood development.
Yeah, absolutely. So when you look at Calgary, it's split into 4 different quadrants. The Northeast is what we're referring to here. And it's seen the highest percentage in growth over the last couple of years, and they're also expecting and anticipating that to continue over the next decade or so. And simply, this is where people initially moved to get a better feel for the area. There's many communities that have already set roots in the Northeast. So when you have immigrants coming over, or even other people from within Canada moving into Calgary for a better lifestyle, they want to go where things are familiar. So as a result, the population getting larger and growing also drives up real estate value, not only in the resale and the sale capacity, but also in the rental pool and the rental side of things. My very first closed in Calgary was in August, this past August in 2022. And I saw nearly $100,000 difference from my purchase price to what the bank appraised the property for. So that in itself is telling me that these numbers are legitimate numbers. They're not anecdotal, they're not projections. It's tangible numbers that I was able to utilize to grow my portfolio. In addition to that, the rental market here has been phenomenal. I think Calgary has seen nearly a 30% increase over the last year. So, this specific area is close to so many things. You are, within 20 minutes from downtown Calgary, you're under 20 minutes from the airport, and over to the east, when you go into Chestermere, which is the adjacent city to Calgary, there's a lake 10, 12 minutes from where you are. So, and it is a recreational lake. So you can boat, you can do all these different things in the summertime when it's warm enough. So it's a real great location, very central in the sense that you have access to everything, and literally 20 minutes, you can go anywhere you want to within Calgary.
And on top of all of that, why we're very bullish on the area is that you have a major employer relocating their operations away from Toronto to Calgary. And the company's name is de Havilland. They manufacture aircraft, specifically water bombers, which I may need one for my house because my fire alarm keeps on going off, and rugged planes, so meant for the bush and everything like that. I'm showing my northern side by calling it the bush and not the forest. But they're rugged aircraft for the north, and for as I said, like water bombers, that kind of stuff. So, and why they're relocating from Toronto is they were on the Bombardier site, which is part of Downsview, and all that land's gone. That's sold. So this isn't even something that economically they like, oh, we're going to stay in Toronto. They're moving. It's under construction now, and the facility has to move there because the land doesn't exist in Toronto anymore. The land's been sold. And that's going to, when we talk about a relocation, that means the jobs in Toronto have to go to Calgary. That means the people working in Toronto have to go to Calgary to keep their jobs. And this is going to result in 1,500 new jobs. That's 20 minutes east of this location. And this is a facility here. Kyle, you want to talk a little more about the facility?
Yeah, it's absolutely massive. It's almost 1,500 acres of land that's being redeveloped. It's going to have a new landing strip. It's a new business park, new aircraft manufacturing plant and repair facility, training academy. There's even going to be a museum there on this site, and completion is going to start. These buildings are going to start completing in 2025. So knowing that Hazelwood is a 2027 closing, this is perfectly timed to take advantage of when this area is really going to be active. And one of the most exciting things here is, it's really about a 20-minute drive from that facility. You're not even going to know when you're in Calgary and at Hazelwood that there is that plant, but it is going to be very close by, 20 minutes. And Hazelwood and the Huxley community is really the closest community in Calgary to this new plant.
Yeah. You can't get any closer in Calgary. This is the farthest east community in Calgary. And before there's Chestermere, which is after this, but that's a whole different community, a whole different city. If you want to be within the Calgary jurisdiction, get that Calgary on your driver's license. This is the closest community that you can be. And you got to imagine 1,500 people, they need somewhere to live. And this is going to be a great location. And on top of that, when you look at Calgary, this location is just right off of the ring. And the ring is a highway system that goes right around Calgary, which allows you to get to anywhere in Calgary, whether you're going to the north or the south, easily get to the international airport as well. So let's get into well, what I'm going to do is let's open up the floor and let people ask questions about specifically on Hazelwood, because we may have some questions there. So Hazelwood is the project that just launched. Let's talk about Hazelwood and any questions that people may have. The units are in hand currently right now. Signing for these units will start next week, near the end of next week. So the process would be, if you're interested, at the end of this, an email will go out to you. You can book a call with us. You'll also have an opportunity to complete a worksheet to submit your request for a unit. And then either Niesh or Kyle will get back in touch with you to discuss availability and options and everything like that. So we'll just open it up to the floor to see if anyone has any questions on the development itself. And if you do have questions, you can ask it in the Q&A box down below.
One thing I want to add, and this is not to say it's obvious, but just to reiterate, because I do see some familiar names on this list. As these new companies as these companies relocate, it impacts Calgary as a whole and properties all over the place, not necessarily just in one pocket, but across the entire city, because as people start to come into the city, the demand for housing is going to go up, and not everyone will want to live in one specific area. So for those that have properties in other parts, maybe not directly adjacent to the Hazelwood community, this is going to benefit you as well. Think about it, 1,500 new families moving in. As Alex said, they're going to need homes, they're going to need houses, they're going to need condos, they're going to need roofs over heads, as Alex says. So it will positively impact any existing investment that you have here too.
So speaking about roofs over heads, just give me a second here. Let me share my screen again. That's population growth. So as Niesh said, when we're looking at investing in an area, we're looking in an area where we're investing in roofs over heads. So we want to make sure there's a positive population growth, and that's what we've seen even throughout the pandemic. Positive population growth in the Calgary area. And when you look at Q3 2022, Alberta grew the most out of all the provinces in Canada. Calgary also has money. Calgary has the highest millionaires per capita of all major Canadian cities, and they have the highest wages in Canada as well. But when we look at a longer term demographic shift, Alberta is going to grow by 48%. Over the next 20 years, and it'll be larger than BC by 2023 versus Ontario, which is only going to grow by 24%. And then because Calgary is the economic capital of Alberta, it's going to see outsized growth. It's not going to grow by 48%. It's going to grow by 62.5%. It's going to go from 1.6 million people to 2.6 million people. That's a million more people in the city over 20 years. If you're investing in roofs over heads, that is something that you want to see. Do you want to talk about the migration patterns?
Absolutely. And what you saw really between about 2015 to 2019 was Calgary, they were shedding jobs. People were leaving, mainly going to Ontario. That has completely reversed now. It stabilized in 2019 to 2020. And now in 2022, they had started to recognize record net migration. So significant people coming in from international destinations, but also from other provinces. And that shift is now reversing. The majority of people that they're realizing are coming from Ontario back into the province. So in Q2 of 2022, they had a 3,000% year-over-year change. These are massive numbers when you look at it. And you're continuing to see this trend because there's huge opportunities in Calgary today. In Alberta, there's over 100,000 job openings. They can't get enough people in the construction, in the trades, it's booming there. So there's opportunity there for employment, but there's also remote work opportunity now across Canada. And if you're a new immigrant, you land in the GTA, what can you buy for 500,000? I can't even get you a studio in downtown Toronto without parking anymore, right? But you can get a semi-detached house just east of Calgary, 3 bedrooms, 1,500 square feet. If you have a family, you can't live in a studio, but you can have an amazing life in Calgary, earning, some of the top incomes across Canada. So it's no wonder they're having record population booms.
And I was going to say, even in Hazelwood, you can get you're in a 3-bedroom condo for sub 4.
Exactly.
Yeah. The economy. So when we look at the money, Toronto, Montreal, Vancouver, and we all know the prices in these 3 cities of housing. Those are your 3 largest economies in Canada. After that is Calgary. So you can see there's a catch-up period for Calgary housing prices to catch up to the pricing that we've seen in Toronto, Montreal, and Vancouver. And the economy of Calgary itself is larger than the economy of Saskatchewan. Whole province is larger than the economy of Manitoba. So there's significant room to grow still in the housing prices. And this is where Alberta is going to lead the economic growth, and Kyle will talk more about that.
Yeah, and this is where, you're investing mainly for price appreciation. That's where you're going to make the big money. What's going to be the factor for prices to increase, and why are people going to move to those areas? Jobs is the biggest reason. So you want to be investing in an area that's growing, and Alberta is expected to lead economic growth in Canada, not just in 2023, but also in 2024. So you want to be following the money and investing in those areas.
And one quick thing, Kyle, we're talking about high-paying jobs. These are jobs that are in the 6 figures, but the cost of living is one of the lowest in Canada. So that's a good combination. That's a great formula to have a really good life.
Absolutely. And this is where Alberta is really punching above its weight, where it added about 25% of the jobs, which was roughly about 25,000 jobs in Canada, but it represents only about 12% of the overall population. So it's firing on all cylinders right now. And, a huge factor is the higher price of oil. It's no longer dependent on oil and gas like it was historically, but it's still benefiting the overall economy. And for the foreseeable future, oil and gas are still going to stay high. And, people are still coming. And we'll talk a little bit more about it as well. But tech is really growing. But you also have tons of construction jobs as well. These are all high-paying jobs, like Niesh just mentioned.
Kyle, can you just add one element? Because I know this is out there and people are probably hearing you and wondering, hey, what's going on? But there's been quite a lot of talk about the tech sector in the US. But maybe you want to juxtapose that with what we're seeing in Alberta and why we're seeing a different story up here versus down there.
Yeah, and Calgary is really becoming the Silicon Valley of Western Canada. And it's because a huge factor, affordability. You can employ people in Canada for a fraction of the cost of, say, in California, or even Texas, or even Toronto, or Vancouver, these other high expensive areas. So it's definitely benefiting the city, but you're also getting that incubator sort of community with many small and medium-sized businesses setting up there. And Alex, I'm not sure which slides are in here, but a big factor of that is the low cost of the commercial real estate. You can find really cheap office space quite abundantly right now, which is amazing when you're trying to set up shop. And when many companies come together, you get tons of innovation. But not only that, it's also one of the most highly educated workforces in Canada and North America as well. There's countless companies that have cited this about why they've specifically set up operations in Calgary. The most number of STEM graduates in that area as well. Got the University of Calgary there too, Technical Institute close to downtown Calgary. So it's no wonder that it's been such a popular destination for IT people. And companies like Amazon setting up shop, cloud computing hub that they're building in North Calgary, $4 billion investment.
Yeah, and we'll talk about more about that. And when we talk about finances, just even specifically the province of Alberta is in such great financial shape, and oil and gas, which we view as the backbone. We're not relying on oil and gas to drive the economy of Alberta. Tech is the diversification of the economy. But when we look at the backbone, the income and the revenues that oil and gas provide for the province, it puts it in a great financial position where we saw a $13 billion surplus in the last fiscal year for Alberta. And what do they use that money? They use that money to pay down the debt that they've made. And their net financial debt per individual is the lowest in Canada. Which is relevant to you because you're investing in a province that is in the best financial position in Canada, has the lowest taxes in Canada. Why can they have the lowest taxes in Canada? Well, because they have the oil and gas revenue, which allows them to have the lowest corporate tax, no provincial sales tax. So if I'm a company, I'm looking to establish a headquarters somewhere, and Calgary is the second most headquarters outside of Toronto. That's a great low tax environment. This looks really attractive to me. And these surpluses are looking like they're going to go into the future because they have surpluses budgeted in, and it's based on $70 a barrel of oil. And we're at a low point in oil right now, and it was at $76 this morning. But it was at over $80 last week. So we're still in a great area where the price of oil is still above the numbers they were anticipating for their surpluses. I'm just talking about the net financial debt numbers. You can see where Ontario is nearly $20,000 or nearly $19,000, and Alberta is hovering around that $2,500 mark. This was done in 2017, so these numbers have changed, but Alberta still has the lowest net financial debt per Canada, which allows it to make financial investments that other provinces just can't make. So buy low, sell high, investing 101. I'm just going to jump through these a little bit more because I want to get into the diversification. Well, actually, no, but we have a slide coming up that talks about how we haven't hit 2014 pricing yet in Calgary, right? I think one of the slides you made, Cal?
I think so.
Yeah, I'm just going to jump over that because we have a whole bunch of slides talking about the market in Alberta. So I want to get to those slides. But diversification away from oil and gas. And this is where Kyle and Niesh were talking about that whole tech industry. So I'll let Kyle talk about more of it right now.
Yeah, and it's just adding on to what I mentioned before. Now, you can probably go to the next slide. Where Calgary is just it's such an attractive city when you look nationally. Home to over 400 tech companies, and it's that low-cost office space that is, a significant contributor. Cost for office space downtown Calgary, $17.50 a square foot. That's less than half than Toronto, and about a third of Vancouver's prices. So when you have an educated workforce, really cheap real estate, favorable business and tax environment, it's a no-brainer for many of these companies.
And going back to the tech sector, the Americans, the way that our dollar is right now, that $17.50 to them is like $12 a square foot.
Oh yeah, like
largest city in Canada.
Kyle, why don't you tell your story about employees hired in Canada that are you just tell the story and I'll jump into the part that I want to actually add that I think is funny.
Okay, what story is that, Alex?
No, your wife, how she's employed in Canada.
Yeah, exactly. My wife works for a large pharmaceutical company, and they set up an operation in Mississauga because it was significantly more cost effective than their operations in San Francisco, in Basel, in incredibly expensive areas. So they can hire 2 people in Canada, where healthcare is covered, the prices are much lower for salaries overall. The Canadian dollar is much more advantageous. So you still get a very highly educated and skilled workforce as well. So for many big companies, Canada is very attractive.
And where the funny part is your wife's previous role, she's been promoted since, but she was in charge of regulation for America.
Yep,
so
working with the FDA.
Yes.
Canada.
From Canada, yes. So a Canadian from Canada was dealing directly with the FDA because it was more cost effective for them to do that than have someone living in San Francisco. And on top of that, when we talk about new Canadians and we talk about the over 500,000 people we're looking at bringing in per year, and where this is attractive to American companies is that a lot of these individuals wouldn't be able to work in the US. They wouldn't be able to get their green cards or their visas to work in the US, but they can hire them at a fraction of the cost in Canada, and they're able to get their PR status and their work visas here in Canada just due to the immigration regulations in the US. So we actually have a large talent pool that the US can tap into at a fraction of the cost that they can't even get in the US because the US wouldn't even let those individuals in.
Whereas we're running commercials to get people to come to Alberta.
Yes, yeah, exactly. And this is where we've seen investment in the tech space in Alberta starting to pay off. And these are examples of unicorns, startup companies that have received billion-dollar valuations: Neo Financial, Benivity, Parvis Therapeutics, ShareWorks. All these companies have received billion-dollar valuations, and they start investing. The founders of these companies start investing in their friends' companies that are also in the area, and you get that incubation of even more companies, and you start to be getting known as a tech hub, like we've seen happen in Toronto, Vancouver, Montreal. Calgary is the next bet, and as I said, affordable. From a tax perspective, and as Kyle's brought up and Niesh has brought up, from a commercial real estate perspective as well, and then of course for the Canadian dollar too. And it's not just startups. We've had, well, Kyle, you're great at telling these slides, so I'm going to let you talk about these slides, these companies that have started up.
Yeah, very well established companies that are household names. So Amazon, everyone's heard of them. So they're not just setting up a distribution center in Calgary. They do have one, but they're also building a new cloud computing hub. This is only the second one in Canada. The only other one is in Montreal. This is over a $4 billion investment, 900 jobs that are coming to the city. So when Amazon, is it the biggest company in the world now? That when they decide to set up operations in a physical location, they've done their homework. And Calgary, they chose it. TELUS, they just opened up a brand new 60-story headquarters in downtown Calgary. They're hiring very heavily in Alberta and investing heavily in that province. Over $17 billion are going to be pumping into the network and operations there. They're going to be hiring over 8,500 people in the province. And WestJet, they just chose Calgary to use as a global connecting hub for all of their flights. They're going to be investing billions with a B into the Calgary airport and surrounding area, over 1,000 new direct jobs. So when these huge companies continue to set up operations, expand, choose Calgary, this is a vote of confidence for me, and you got to follow the money when you're investing.
Yeah, and what I'd like to add is that there's only 4 true international airports in Canada: Toronto, Montreal, Vancouver, and Calgary. And this was highlighted during COVID because there was literally only 4 international airports in Canada that were open. So as an international, you can only fly into one of these 4 airports: Toronto, Montreal, Vancouver, Calgary. Why that's relevant to you is that if you are a head office and you're an international company, you want to be able to fly directly there. And Kyle, I just booked a flight to Las Vegas. So just want to give people an example of this. I just booked a flight to Las Vegas. There was a Remax event down there at the end of the month. I booked it yesterday, and I'm looking at my options for flying. So I get my Air Canada numbers. They weren't pretty. So I'm like, okay, let me check WestJet. I can't fly direct to Las Vegas anymore from Toronto. It is all through, it's all through Alberta, Calgary. Like it was like, oh my God, like so now you have this direct Western hub from another major airline, and I didn't want to connect. So it was quite incredible to see. So you're going to have that direct connection, everything coming from Calgary, and that's massive. If you look at the US, what are our airport hubs in the US? You have Chicago, you have Atlanta. These are, and then when you have these massive cities, massive connecting airports, you get massive industry around these airports. I mean, you want to look at what's been done in the past to see what's going to happen in the future.
And also the way Calgary is set up from the airport, it's 15, 20 minutes to go anywhere in the city.
Yeah.
So your commute times are considerably shorter than anywhere else.
Very incredible. So de Havilland, which we've already talked about, so I'm just going to jump over that. But we're all 3 of us very bullish in de Havilland. We've all invested in East Calgary, and that's where it's relevant to the Hazelwood development, which we were discussing earlier in there. It's not just these startups, and we brought up Amazon making investments there, but now we have international IT firms as well. Emphasis No, I always say emphasis wrong. Kyle, you say it correctly, don't you? What is it?
I'm not even sure, to be honest.
Okay.
Emphasis,
Well,
emphasis.
All right, but what's relevant is that these are massive, massive, massive global IT firms. Both these two are located out of India, and again, why that's relevant. The amount of IT consultants that are going to relocate now from India to Calgary, which the Southeast Asian community is actually in the north and the east. So that's relevant to when you're looking at investments in Calgary, to know that you have massive international IT firms specifically out of India that are opening up shop in Calgary. So Infosys is opening with over 1,000 employees. So Infosys another 1,000 employees. So where are these individuals going to live? They're going to live where their communities are. And that's why you've seen strong growth in that Northeast, where we did an example. If you look at Northeast was 13.3% growth, and East Calgary is 13.2% growth, the two highest areas right there. If you go to the West, now I will say the West is a higher valued area. The West is desirable, but it's far more expensive. That's why you haven't seen as much growth in price over there. So that's where's the population coming from, and where are they going to settle? They're going to settle in the East. They're going to settle in the Northeast, and as their communities grow, whether they have family there, whether they have friends there, culturally, spiritually, they're going to be relocating to these areas. And it's not, again, we have our local establishments, say TD, over 100 financial planners. Kyle, you're great at this slide. I can put you back on the slide.
Yeah, and it just shows you it's not just IT companies as well, but other big companies, going back to TD, RBC, IBM, they've all set up operations in Calgary, and they virtually all cited the innovative atmosphere and the highly educated workforce about why they chose Calgary.
And I was also reading about the financial industry and the growth in that sector as well over the last couple of years. And it just makes sense, right? Like, these are individuals that know numbers, and the numbers in Calgary paint a very positive picture for their business. If they're bottom line driven, they want to manage controllable costs. And that's why you're seeing a huge growth also in the financial services sector. And the TD and the RBC example is an indicator of that.
Yeah, and if I go back and IBM, which we have on that slide as well, and Gallery was a project we sold downtown in September that sold out in 2 weeks, and that was when things were slowing down in the market. Had no issues with that. It was hot. So it was literally across the street from the new Calgary Innovation Hub downtown, and priced much different than Hazelwood, I'll say as well. About double, right? I'd say double.
Pretty close.
Yeah. So how can we be so confident about this in Calgary? We've given you relevant examples that are happening now, but we've also seen this already happen in the States, where we've seen companies move out of California, a area that is high taxed, has expensive housing. Companies are leaving there. Why they're leaving there? They're leaving there for those reasons, and they're relocating to lower tax, less expensive jurisdictions like Texas. Well, guess what? That's the same thing for Alberta. Alberta has the lowest corporate tax rate in Canada, no land transfer tax or development charges when you're investing in real estate, and no provincial sales tax. Expensive housing. Calgary housing has the second lowest cost of living out of all major Canadian cities, and ninth lowest in North America. So if you're working for one of these companies, you can make the same amount of money living in Calgary as you are working in Calgary as you are in Toronto. But in Toronto, you can make 6 figures and barely be scraping by, whereas Calgary, you can live a comfortable lifestyle. So your employees, so as if I'm a company relocating there, your employees can have a much higher life satisfaction level. And the government is, as we showed about the net financial debt numbers, they have the ability to invest back into the economy and diversify their economy. And that's why we're seeing, and we focus on the tech industry. We talk a lot about the tech industry. We did bring up the Havilland, which isn't the sexy name, but there are a lot of other non-sexy things that are happening in the Calgary and the industrial space. You have a lot of petrochemical investment, plastics, industrials, development. even energy. So we talk about oil and gas, but what's specific about Calgary is and the difference between Calgary and Edmonton. Edmonton is where they make the gas. Calgary is where they get the money to develop the gas. So Calgary is the financial hub of Alberta. And when you're developing gas, and Kyle's like, he's going down a rabbit hole. He's going down a rabbit hole. But when you're developing gas, you're just developing energy. So you have financing expertise in energy development. So it's not just oil and gas that they have expertise in financing. Alberta is one, believe it or not, is one of the leading investors in development green energy, because they know how to invest in energy, and that's what they're focused on. So you have massive developments in green energy and wind and solar happening in Calgary. On top of that, if you look at the investments in the oil sands and how to make them carbon neutral, the investments they're making into that area as well. There's big things that are happening out in Alberta, I was going to go down a rabbit hole in regards to where we start talking about how the need for Canadian commodities over the next 10 to 20 years and everything like that. Well, Niesh and Kyle, I'll let you talk about that. Why don't you guys talk about the value of Canadian commodities? I feel like I'm doing it's like on exam day.
You're doing so good though, Alex.
Okay, I'll keep on talking about it. Well, when you look at Canadian, so obviously we have the conflict in Ukraine right now, and the conflict in Ukraine has led to the bump in oil prices, and that led to Europe, not just Europe, but around the world, energy crises in regards to where am I getting my commodities? Where am I literally going to get the oil to heat my houses in this winter? South Africa right now, rolling blackouts. South Africa has rolling blackouts, 10-hour blackouts, that kind of thing. If you don't have energy, power, then you can't have an economy, because you have no industry. You can't move vehicles to transport goods. None of the stuff exists. So you need safe and secure and reliable sources of energy to have a functioning economy. Well, what does Canada offer? Well, Canada has safe and secure and reliable sources of energy, being, for example, oil and gas. So we have our oil and gas, which will become more increasingly valuable on the world stage as countries look for politically stable countries where they can import their commodities from, and they will pay a premium for those commodities. And that premium will just be part of the cost of doing business, because they know that, hey, yeah, I got to pay more for this, but I know it's going to be there tomorrow. And the country that's providing it to me isn't going to use that commodity to extort political gains from me. So that's the value of Canadian commodities, not just oil and gas, but all our commodities, where you read about liquefied natural gas, when you read about critical minerals, that kind of thing. That's where Canada, United States as well, and Australia are poised to do very well over the next 20 years. So again, that's when we think of on the longer term, where are we going to benefit from that? Pro-investment, where we talked about no rent control, no foreign buyer tax. Well, that's irrelevant, because if you're international, you can't buy anymore anyway. So, but no land transfer tax, no provincial sales tax, no development charges, and that $10 billion stimulus package, which was introduced at the beginning of COVID, which allowed Alberta to have the lowest corporate taxes across Canada. So Niesh, I want you to talk about the, well, Kyle, I'll help you talk about this. Kyle, you talk about the Calgary market in December and how things are continuing to be strong there.
Before we jump here,
yeah, of course.
Can I make a quick point?
Yeah.
If you can flip to the slide previous, Alex.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Of course. Yeah.
Yeah. And
no,
yeah, that's one. So along the lines of the no rent control, one of the key important elements about being a landlord is the relationship you can have with your tenant. Now, in Ontario, many feel, and I feel, that things are too heavily weighted in favor of tenants, to the point where, as an investor, it's not safe. There's a ton of risk, and that was exposed over the last 2 years, where people could stay in your properties and go for months, even years, without paying rent, and there was really no recourse as a landlord. Alberta is pro-investor. So I don't want to say that they are pro-landlord, but they just have a very fair system. You know, you have a tenant that signs a contract, they are held to that contract. And if you have an issue and you have deviant tenants or, you know, problematic tenants, it's a fraction of the time to get those issues resolved versus other provinces, specifically the one that we're in here in Ontario.
Yeah, you're looking at 2 to 3 weeks to get a tenant out that doesn't pay rent versus, you know, I don't know, eight to 10 months here in Ontario. So yeah, it is a pro investor environment. And the great thing is, so we're seeing a downturn in the market here in Toronto and a lot of places across Canada. But Kyle, what are we seeing out in Calgary?
Yeah, and that's where, you know, it's important to look at the past, but the past does not indicate future performance, but trends and seeing where things are going is very important and very telling. So overall, sales dropped significantly from the peak of the market, which was really February, March of 2022. Now, overall in the year, though, Calgary had record sales, almost 30,000 units. This was still a record, even though sales dropped about 70% from the peak, which sounds very scary, but new listings dropped even further. So there's fewer listings available for sale overall. And they actually have the lowest level of inventory in over 10 years in December.
I think it's even lower now. I think
it is.
It's lowest level since the 90s. Lowest level, like currently right now, today, we're at the lowest level since the 90s in Calgary.
And what that means is, you know, there are more sales happening than units being listed. So the number of units are continuing to go down. So there's less than 2 months supply in the market, which generally weights it to a seller's market, even during probably the worst real estate market Canada has seen in over 20 years. And it's reflecting in that price because, you know, there's so little available that people are, it's not bidding wars, but you can still be, you have a precious commodity. You know, you don't have to negotiate. You have the power in that situation. And the stats just came out for January. Condo prices were up 1% month over month. You know, annualized, that's 12%. And that's very close to how condos did perform over the last year. They're up about 10% year over year in Calgary. Compare that to any other major market. You know, areas say like Kitchener that are down over 20%. Where do you want to be invested? I'm putting my money in Calgary.
And again, I love this slide right here. This just shows right here how, you know, you brought up Kitchener, Waterloo, you know, these areas that went up significantly during COVID. They're going to pull back and they're dropping 20-30%. Calgary hasn't dropped at all. We've seen no price drop. And why is that? Well, condos have not hit the record highs from 2014. So like we're literally 10 years out from the pricing in 2014. Where we are in Calgary condo prices. And that's why we saw the same thing in Toronto. What do you mean we saw the same thing in Toronto? In 2014, the pricing in condos in Toronto are very similar to what the pricing is in Calgary condos today. And there ends up being a lack of affordability. And it's also a lifestyle perspective in regards to there's a demographic that doesn't want to live in houses, not until they have kids. They enjoy the freedom that they get with living in a condo. Someone else can take care of, there's no grass to mow, there's no snow to shovel, there's no structure to maintain. I'm just worried what's in my four walls. And then the rental market has absolutely been insane. Niesh, because you specifically rented your unit in Calgary, why don't you talk about these slides and how much rent has gone up in Calgary?
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, the increase in the rental market really speaks to why the sales have decreased as well. Because if you're holding a property and you're positive cash flowing every month, you're not going to want to put that up for sale because that's an investment that's providing money every month, month over month. So my specific example was that when I purchased my townhouse back in 2021, I bought it for under 400,000. And when I closed on the property in August, it was significantly more than that. And the rental guarantee that we initially alluded to with Truman, that's an insurance policy, the way we look at it, because they're providing you with a set rate when you sign on, but that isn't something that you're committed to. And thankfully, seeing the market and being able to experience the growth and also benefiting from it, I was able to put that contract and that incentive on the side and work directly with my tenants. And I saw nearly a $500 increase in the monthly rent that I was able to get versus what I was guaranteed when I initially signed the contract. So you're looking at the trends moving in the right direction, as Kyle alluded to. We can reference the past, but when you're seeing a trajectory and you're seeing the growth of the market, this is really, as an investor, the perfect formula, because you have very low cost to get into the market. Your closing costs are almost nothing. Your rent is going to more than cover your mortgage payments, and you have a phenomenal set of bylaws with the landlord and tenant board out there. So we are all very, very much invested in Calgary. I know I'm going off script here a little bit, but I know that there's many ads out there for Calgary. There's many brokerages that are offering units here, but I'm being genuine when I tell you that no other brokerage has invested their own personal money like we have in Calgary. And that's why we know so much about it, because we have done the dirty work. We've gotten into the weeds. We've read the fine print. And after we did all of that, we're even more bullish on Calgary because we see the growth and the potential that it has down the road for us.